What About Vietnam? A podcast with Carrie Newsom. The series where Carrie talks with travellers about their experiences and adventures. Find out more about Vietnam from the people who have actually been there.
What about Vietnam?
Whether it's adventure, exploring the culture and cuisine, shopping, or just soaking up the sun. Let Carrie and her travellers pave the way for a magical holiday in Vietnam.
What about Vietnam?
Xin chào and welcome to What About Vietnam? Today we're going to be talking about a fascinating region called the Bac Ha Markets. And you would consider Bac Ha as a place in conjunction with Sapa. So if you're going to head to Sapa and you want to experience some of those rolling rice paddy fields that you see in the photos, you want to be able to mix and meet with some of the local minority groups, as in the Flower Hmong people that, like crikey, you see those photos all over the place when you're looking at Vietnam. This is the place where they are. And today I'm delighted to have my guest, Mike Pollock, on the show. And Mike's had an extensive time in Vietnam and experience in Vietnam, and in particular in this region. He heralds originally from Boston in the US, and I think, majority of his life has been following his greatest passion, which is travel, and further to travel, photography, as he's done scuba diving, he's done photography around the Caribbean, and most recently spent some time in South America and then, of course, in Vietnam. Today, he's going to tell you about his experiences there. I think for someone to really grasp the area, I think you're going to get a real feeling that Mike has the true essence of the place and gives you some really good fun insights into the locality, what to expect as far as accommodation, what to expect as far as food, people, experiences, what you can buy, and, how long it takes to get there and what the whole experience of traveling to the Bac Ha region is all about. I hope you'll welcome Mike to the program. Tell us, Mike, how you first came to visit the Bac Ha Markets and what attracted you to go there in the first place?
Well, the story really begins with Sapa. I went to Sapa for 3 days. I knew nothing about Sapa. I did zero research on it. I just got on a bus and went up there, and I loved it. I was absolutely fascinated by the people. They're wonderful. Their way of life is fascinating. And of course, the landscape and the scenery is just spectacular. So after my 3-day trip, after 3 days, I left Sapa for about 3 weeks, and I rearranged my entire life, and I ended up spending a great deal of time there. And from Sapa, my knowledge of the area increased, right? I learned more and more about the region. I made friends with people who happened to be in the travel business there, tour guides, tour organizers. So they said, "Oh, well, you have to go to Haijan. You have to go to Bac Ha." So, and first trip to Bac Ha, that was it. I was in love with Bac Ha too. And again, it's a combination of the people, their way of life, and the stunning season. So the stunning scenery, excuse me.
And as you say, the stunning scenery, the people because of their beautiful costumes, just the whole landscape, everything there has got to be, for a photographer like yourself, oh, wow, I could spend a lot of time here, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Because you see the photos everywhere. When anyone is selling Vietnam, when you look at a brochure or whatever, I don't know, but you'd swear to God the Flower Hmong people were everywhere in Vietnam, not just up in the north. Isn't that true?
Yeah, and the same thing with photographs of the iconic rice terraces too. You see the same pictures of the same rice terraces all over the internet.
Exactly. And like when people arrive into Vietnam and they're in Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh and there's 300 million motorbikes, they're not quite the same as the rice field picture I think they've
Well,
had in their head.
well, that's another thing too. I mean, far northern Vietnam is radically different than other urban centers. It's so much different, you know.
It is. It is. And let's dive a little bit deep now into how do we get to Bac Ha, because uh, it's a trip, isn't it? There's a trip involved, and it's not just getting to Sapa, it's beyond Sapa. Now, you've written a great article on your website, which I'm going to put the link on the episode notes to. But can you talk to my guest just about the mode of transport, the best mode of transport, and just timings? You know how we had a joke before about how long things take. If you could just speak to that, that'd be great. I think everyone would benefit.
Well, you have a few different options, and of course, Bac Ha combines very easily with Sapa. And if you think, of course, both these are districts in Lao Cai province, and Lao Cai City is the transportation hub of the province. So if you're going to go to Sapa or you're going to go to Bac Ha, chances are you're going to at least drive through Lao Cai City. So to answer your question, now that I've gone through all that, you have several options. You can take the train up to Lao Cai City, which I believe you know all about, right? You've done the train journey?
Yes.
Yes. And then from the train station in Lao Cai City, it's very easy to get either a van or a minibus to Bac Ha town, which is roughly 2 hours from Lao Cai City Center. You also have the bus option. You can take a bus to Lao Cai City from Hanoi. And there are a few direct buses running between Hanoi and Bac Ha. There is a night bus for sure. Some of us don't really care for night buses. And there's also a daytime bus that runs all the way up to Simacai. So you have a couple of options there. And then, of course, if you're going to combine Bac Ha and Sapa, that's very easy to do with a combination of either public bus and local bus. And there's also a shuttle that runs directly from Sapa to Bac Ha every afternoon. And Sapa to Bac Ha is roughly a 3-hour journey.
Okay. And I wanted to bring this up early with people because I wanted to set some realities for people in the journey side of things. Because if you've done the overnight train and, you know, you kind of get out of that train in the morning, and I remember I was pretty shattered. And then, you know, the thought of then another 2 to 3 hours onto that, that was kind of a bit for me to take on. And I've heard some of the other people that have travelled into this area, they've kind of said, oh, gee, you know, I wish that I'd, you know, sort of got off and been able to chill out for a while, maybe in Sapa itself, and maybe have a rest day and then do it the next day, or, you know, try and add some more time into the stay and the whole adventure of the region. Because I think if you go into these places and you're tired, you kind of, your weariness inhibits you from enjoying it to the full max because you're just weary and you kind of need to take a breather. And no one will tell you the real times in Vietnam. It used to drive me crazy because I'd say, oh, I'd get in a car or a van or, you know, how long is it going to take? And, you know, they don't want to tell you that the road has got, you know, 25 switchbacks and it's going to take you 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah, absolutely. Overland travel in Vietnam and all of Southeast Asia can be extremely slow, and it's difficult to say exactly how long the journey is going to take. You know, so you have to have some patience there. But the thing about these markets, I should mention this, is they start very early in the morning. Mm-hmm. People are setting up their stalls at sunrise, before sunrise. And the market, Bac Ha Market in particular, will be very busy by about 10 a.m. And then by about noon, people are going home. So the best way to tackle this is to get there the night before. And you sleep there the night before. If you sleep in Bac Ha on Saturday night, they have a what they call a night market cultural show. And it's really not so much of a night market, but they do have a stage in the town center right by the little temple, downtown, uptown Bac Ha. And every Saturday night, there's a performance of not just Hmong people, but also Tay. I forget all the ethnic groups that get on the stage in their full costume, and they do a dance show. And I don't think this is really a tourist orientated thing. They're really, the people that are really into their culture. We've talked about this before. They're very into the traditional costume, traditional music, traditional instruments, traditional dance. So anyway, so you get to Bac Ha the night before. You get up early. Get to the market early before it gets too crowded. Particularly if you're a photographer, this is key. You want to get to the market before it gets crowded and before the sun gets too high in the sky, so that you can get some nice clean images. Have some nice even light. And then depending on your interest, a couple hours in the market might be enough. And then what you can do is head to the north of Bac Ha, or anywhere in Bac Ha really, but you head up north towards the border of China, and the scenery is just absolutely beautiful. And that's easy to do. You can rent a motorcycle if you're qualified to do so. You can hire someone to drive you around on a motorcycle. You can hire a car. You can even do some of it if you're a little bit adventurous by public transportation. There are buses that run north of the city that'll get you far out of the city. If you're into trekking, you can hire a local guide to take you trekking, or you can go trek around by yourself. But the district is absolutely beautiful. It's typical rural Vietnam.
So, good lead into just talking about the Hmong people, because everything I've read is that this Sunday's a big day for them, isn't it? They come from far and wide, and the women in particular dress up, if that's the word, in their traditional costumes. So talk to us a little bit about what they sell, what they trade, how the gig actually goes. What can I expect to see?
Okay, well, if you read any Vietnamese travel articles or travel blogs about these markets, when it translates into English, it always translates into fair. People say there's a Sunday fair in Bac Ha. And that's kind of what it is. And you're exactly right. The hill people, not just from Bac Ha, but they'll come from neighboring Hong Su Phi and Hai San province. They'll come from a long area to go to this market, exactly. And they will trade many traditional things, livestock, right? We trade buffalo, horses, goats, pigs, of course, chickens, ducks, that sort of thing. But they also sell a lot of handmade farming equipment. I mean, these people are farmers. They might have a side job of some sort, but somewhere during the day, they're going to do some farming. And the Hmong people are famous for making steel implements that range anything from a knife to a machete, the working part of a wooden plow that's still pulled behind a buffalo. So there's a lot of traditional handmade tools in addition to the clothing that we've talked about, the cloth or the dye, the thread necessary to make these products, all kinds of local potions.
Happy water?
Happy water, yeah, we can talk about happy water. A lot of happy water. And people come to the market and they make a day out of it themselves. The food stalls are always full, chock full of locals eating pho or whatever it is. And it's a big day out for them too. You'll see the little children are running around getting ice cream, and dad's having a little hoppy water while mother's selling corn or whatever. And it's a big day for the people. It's not, even though tourists go to these things, it's not really directed at the tourists. It's a locals thing.
And that kind of, for me, begs the question on how to best experience that from a language perspective. Because sometimes when I go to these places, especially because I try and get there early before the typical busload arrives, and like we don't know in the future with COVID, etc., maybe there won't be big busloads like there used to be. Let's kind of cross our fingers on that one. But like when you do get there, I almost feel like a bit of an invader because like, hey, I've got blonde hair, so I stand out like the proverbial. But when I get in there, I do feel a little bit noticeably a tourist, and then I feel like I'm kind of invading in their space. Do you recommend going with a guide to get a better experience, or language wise, it's a little bit tricky? What do you think?
I will hire guides to go to markets on occasion. And the main reason is just the language barrier.
Yes.
Because I really do want to have a chat with people. I really want to find out exactly what that funny looking herb is that they're selling on the table.
Yeah.
You see the potions and the powders. I should have sent you a picture, but you know that you have these strange exotic herbs and tree bark and mushrooms and powders and more happy water. And I want to know exactly what this is. So it is useful to have a guide.
Yeah, especially what's in the soup. Like, like what is in the soup?
Yeah.
I always ask that question because, let's identify what animal we're talking about. And I'm not a big fan of blood, anything that starts with blood.
Right. Well, that's easy.
When I have a steak, it's well done, so I can't have
right.
pork.
But the thing is that any of these markets that you go to, you don't need to go into that section. You don't need to go to the butcher shop. You can stay in the vegetable market where it's nice and clean.
But if you want a snack and you want to have some soup, and it kind of smells okay, but then it could be. I'm looking at your face, Mike.
That's kind of. I think if you order chicken soup, what we say, foie, you're getting chicken soup. It's not a big mystery.
Okay, all right. So, suggestion-wise is that yes, definitely get a guide. I mean, I always get a guide for the language reasons, and because I think that they can just give you some insights that you wouldn't pick up on otherwise. You're going to look at it with very Western eyes, but they're going to say, oh, well, that means that. And, they can give some reference points, I think, that are most helpful.
Yeah, I agree with you for sure.
All right. So when we're talking about, things to buy for a Westerner, okay, we're not going to take any shovels or picks home with us. I'm certainly not riding any buffaloes, or they're not doing trick or treat like that. So
right.
What am I going to be looking to buy as a souvenir to take home?
Well, there are a number of stalls at these markets that cater specifically to tourists, tourist trinkets, many of which you will have already seen in Hanoi. But there are a lot of traditional handicrafts produced there that are traditional and handmade. And what you need to do is just look at the product before you buy it, obviously. If it looks like it was made in a factory, it probably was. If it looks like grandmother made it at home, it's very soft. It's got a little layer of dust on it. That's an authentic product, right? That's handmade cloth, hand done embroidery. And I think you can figure it out. And if you dig through these stalls, you'll find a tremendous amount of traditional pieces. You just have to kind of scan around and look around a little bit. But since you mentioned that, I don't have the proper name for it, but the Hmong flutes, you've probably seen pictures of the musical instruments. You can buy those. That's a nice souvenir. Hmong musical instruments.
Yeah, I have bought bedspreads.
Mm-hmm.
and handmade. They are spectacular color wise. They hang them up, and you can go through and choose the ones you want. And I kind of have a laugh with people, and I say the ones where the threads are hanging out. And there's probably a good chance that when you wash it the first time it'll fall apart. They're the authentic ones.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So if you want it to stay together, you're probably better over at that stall where it's probably made in a Chinese factory.
Right,
So,
right, well,
there's pluses and minuses.
Right.
But I still have it because I love it, because when I touch it and I smell and whatever, I feel like I was really there. So it does have some beautiful memories, but I wash it very delicately.
Very carefully.
Very delicately. All right, let's just talk about times of year, because another fascinating fact about Vietnam, which I think always seems to faze people, is that everyone thinks that Vietnam is hot all year round. And they kind of just wipe Vietnam over and say, oh, that's hot. Yet I think you're going to agree with me. In the north, it gets bloody cold.
Oh, they had a brutal winter last year.
Yeah.
Brutal winter, yeah.
Certainly in this particular area in Sapa, it can get to freezing. It can get to snow, can't it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Basically, December well into March is winter. And it can be very cold, windy, and it can also be extremely foggy.
Yes.
What we call black fog, where you can see 50 meters in front of you, and that's about it. And the fog will get so thick that it basically starts to drizzle, and everything is covered in a mist. So yeah, the wintertime can be challenging.
Yeah. And I think that mist or that fog that you talk about was something I didn't count on. And I think for a photographer, that must drive you a bit crazy with the fog, because you can't see 50 feet in front of you.
Well, yeah, the weather in general is very challenging there. But that's also sort of the magic of the place as well. You wake up and you're blanketed in fog and mist and maybe a little bit of drizzle. And by noon, the sun is out and it's shining and it's extremely hot. And then the cycle repeats itself in the afternoon. And yeah, the weather makes travel there interesting, and it can make it a bit challenging. So, like I said, wintertime's tough. You need to bring warm clothes. You need to dress in layers and wear maybe some kind of outer waterproof shell. Carry an umbrella.
Yep. So, but if we're talking around that kind of March through till, what would we say, June, July, that's pretty pleasant, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say April. April's kind of the threshold. March can be, as I said, very challenging. But once you're into April, things are looking good. But then you have to remember that by June, you're into rainy season. And it can be very, very wet there during the rainy season.
So peak times to visit, we should say April,
May, October, November.
September, October, November.
Yeah, I like September. Well, September you have all the rice. The rice maturing, and you have the beautiful rice fields. So I love September, but there's a good chance you're going to get a little wet now and again. Did you notice all the ladies in Sapa all carry an umbrella? Everybody carries an umbrella. I do too. Because when it's not raining, the sun comes up, the sun cooks the back of your neck, you break out your umbrella. It's genius.
Yeah. It is genius. Yeah. And I'm all for it. And you don't look, in some countries they would kind of think you're a bit of a nutcase. But in Vietnam, not a problem. Yeah. I do it in a lot of places, because you're right. It's handy for the wet when it just does a downpour for 20 minutes and then it's gone. And the same when the sun comes out. And with my skin, gotcha on that one. Look, there's some areas a little bit around Bac Bac Ha that I did a little bit of research on. You mentioned the temple and the Saturday night features, but there's a few little places around Bac Ha. Did you venture further into those areas?
Yeah, I've seen a significant portion of the district. As we mentioned earlier, there's many. The Sunday market is most famous, and then there's a Saturday market about 19 kilometers to the north in Kankau. But there's markets. There's small markets every day. There's interesting markets. Oh, I think 6 days a week. So you can, if you miss the Sunday market, there's a Tuesday market in Cockley, for example.
Yeah, I was
You
going to
can,
mention Cockley.
in Cockley's setting, it's absolutely beautiful. It's out off the main road. It's absolutely stunning scenery, and you could combine that, hire a car and driver, for example, take you from Sapa to Cockley and then to Bac Ha, and make a road trip out of it. And there's another market, a Wednesday market up by Simacai, which it's very worth doing as well. They have a nice buffalo market. Anyway, but as I mentioned before, these markets start early in the morning. So you get going early in the morning, you do a couple hours at the market, and then you continue on and you can do some more sightseeing or trekking and explore the district.
At your leisure.
Yeah, at your leisure, exactly.
So would you allow, to do it properly, would you allow 2 nights, 3 nights?
Oh, I could do that easily. And the other interesting thing about Bac Ha is that for the weekend markets, they're very well known. They're very popular. The town is quite busy. But Monday through Friday, the town itself is very, very quiet. If you want to escape hustle and bustle, that's the place to do it. It's a very relaxing, quaint little town.
So would you say this is the kind of thing that a family could do, like a young family, like I think it's definitely a family thing to do, and kids and anyone would just find it fascinating.
Oh,
What do you think?
absolutely. Absolutely. I've come across many, many families in Bac Ha. A lot of people do organized tours, right? They have a car and driver,
Yeah.
and it's very common to see families traveling that way.
I would, however, suggest for people with, like any difficulties as far as walking, or, they're not good with kind of endurance in heat. If they're going at that time of year, maybe they take a guide or car and they can drop them around a few places.
Well, the market in town is not an issue. It's in the infrastructure.
It's in the surrounds.
It's in the town. So there shouldn't be any problem walking around there whatsoever. As far as the heat goes, as I already mentioned, you really want to get there early because the market's done by high noon when the sun is cooking. And Bac Ha can be very hot. We talk about how cold it is in the winter. In the summertime, it's pretty hot. So you want to get out early before it gets too hot. Some of the other markets could be a little bit challenging if you have some mobility issues.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a deal breaker, but you have to maybe choose accordingly.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk just a little bit as we kind of finish off the episode, just about accommodation in the area. You and I had a bit of a laugh about homestays and just how liberally that term gets shared around. So talk to us, about a stay there. It doesn't have to be expensive, but just so people can manage their expectations about homestays and accommodation. Can you talk to us a little bit about your experiences there?
Yeah, well, the issue with homestay is that it's used to describe a big variety of accommodations. It's used too liberally. A homestay could be living in a traditional house on the side of the mountain where you're sleeping on the floor with the chickens, or it could be more like a guest house, or what in the United States we would call a motel. So, yeah, it varies widely. I generally sleep in the hotels in Bac Ha town. There's quite a few of them. They're very typical Asian Vietnamese style budget accommodations. They're very inexpensive, but they're very simple, and it's easy. You roll out of bed, you're at the market, and if you go through the market, you need a little break. Very easy to find a place to have a coffee or a bowl of soup, as we mentioned earlier. Run back to the hotel to get fresh batteries for my camera, something like that. Right. But surrounding the town itself, yes, there's many, many homestays, and they really do range. There's a big range of homestays. I guess you have to choose your homestay wisely, do some research on it.
I know because I work with a tour company out of Hanoi, and we have people who say to us, "Oh no, we want to have the real, authentic experience. We want to, and we try to say, well, yes, we can do, but please understand, and it's really hard to get a visual or give people a visual of just how humble some of these." Because you're talking about people's homes, how they live is how they're kind of inviting you into their typical home. So I always do try to emphasize to people to get a real understanding of what that authenticity can look like and feel like when really you want a hot shower and a comfortable bed after a day out exploring. So I don't know whether you've actually invited friends of yours or shared homestay ideas with people, but you're right. It's from one level of the needle to the other as far as what you can experience with homestays in that region in particular.
Yeah, a true homestay, an authentic traditional homestay, is just a couple steps above camping.
Yeah, not even as good sometimes.
No, but you're sleeping on a bamboo mat, which is local style. A bamboo mat, perhaps.
I don't take
floor.
Chickens on my camping trip. I leave them at home.
I will say one thing about the hot water, though. Anybody in North Vietnam who's serious about doing any sort of homestay has built a structure separate from the main house that contains a shower with hot water and a Western toilet and a proper sink. Pretty much every homestay in that area is going to have those basic amenities because the locals like hot water too.
Yeah. And I think it's good to mention Western toilets because, Southeast Asia is not always famous for Western toilets. So I like to hear that, that there's more Western toilets in that region. So that's good to know. Mike, just to finish off, I've been asking my guests recently to give me a word to describe travel and what it means to you. I mean, we're sitting in a very different world at the moment. You're sitting in Bangkok. I'm sitting in Australia. Neither of us can go anywhere, but we still both love travel. So if I was to ask you what your word is, what would your word be? And then I'll tell you what mine is.
To describe
I'm putting
travel.
you on the spot.
Yeah.
What it means to you. What it means to you. What does travel mean to you in a word?
In one word. In one word or one, two.
Or two.
Discovery.
Discovery. I like it. Why discovery?
Well, that's what you're doing, aren't you? Even if you go to a place that's been well traveled, many people have been there before you. It's new to you. You're discovering all this for yourself for the first time.
Great word. Love it. And I think what I miss most about travel is discovery. And certainly it ties nicely with my word, which is revive. One of the reasons I'm doing this podcast is I want to revive people's spirit in the form of discovery, of discovering new places, new cultures, new food. And so revive is my word. And I'm trying to revive and keep that spirit alive in people. So with the help of people like you who are keen discoverers. I'm hoping to do that for Vietnam. Mike, lovely to have you on the program. Really great to get some insights into the Bac Ha markets. I've learnt a lot, and I'm sure my listeners have as well. So thanks for being on the show.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening. Check out the episode notes for more information.
What about Vietnam?
Don't forget to subscribe, rate and review, and stay tuned for more fun adventures in Vietnam.
What about Vietnam?